Everyone, welcome to part 9 of my evidential research document in relation to Iran, Israel and the United States being linked to international government fraud, and the three main faith groups therefore being infiltrated and linked to a satanic cult potentially infiltrated by a pharaoh bloodline. It's mass deception against humanity. In a nutshell, the criminal system they have in place allows them to defraud trillions of pounds from billions of people right around the world, and it's been going on for a very long time. Please verify and corroborate the evidence that I'm showing you. And we were looking at Chris Wray, the former head of the FBI in America, who was voted in by Donald Trump at a key time. Chris Wray then left his position as Donald Trump came back in, probably because they knew it was going to be exposed and they're trying to get everyone to believe in Donald Trump. And somebody else became the head of the FBI that we'll come to. And we just showed these connections in through to the Middle East via King and Spalding. And then we looked at how it tied into King Abdullah's city for atomic and renewable energy in Saudi Arabia. And I haven't got it on here, but David Cameron was involved when I started exposing this fraud and finding the links to military supplies and Typhoon jets. He was supplying Typhoon jets via the UK government, supposedly, to Saudi Arabia. When I started to expose it, that suddenly stopped. Okay, now we have to consider that a lot of these deals we're being told are happening are not actually happening, because if they portray to the public that these deals are happening, that assists them in defrauding the masses through the taxation system, okay, through government contracts in relation to this criminal fraud. And of course, the banks are coming in, producing the forged bank documents to assist them in falsifying the accounts and sending real money into offshore accounts. So much of what they're doing is a theatre to the public and part of the deception to exploit and victimise them. But this King Abdullah's city for atomic renewable energy, you can see their new leadership started in 2022 as I was exposing the fraud from Companies House. So I suspect that's not a coincidence. On the right there, I've just searched is King Spalding linked to JP Morgan. It says King Spalding and JP Morgan have a history of working together on various financial transactions, particularly in areas like banking and finance and restructuring. Now, of course, JP Morgan are important because it links to the Flemings, and the Flemings were the ones that called the meeting to have me removed as a director from Export Manor Freehold Limited for refusing to file forged bank documents. So let's have a look at King and Spalding International LLP. Remember, I'd already made the link to that Muscovy company, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, which linked to Ivan the Terrible and potentially the people behind all of this believing that they have the right to be gods and bring punishment upon man through the power of their creator. Which, oh dear. Anyway, so here's King and Spalding International LLP, and you can see it was incorporated on October 2002, the year after the World Trade Center disaster. And on its incorporation document, it has an address, which they use variations of the addresses to avoid accountability and liability. And Basingall Street is one used by Slaughter and May a lot. It's normally 35 Basingall Street, but they're using variations of the addresses. And notice how the company name at the top is in a different font. It's actually partly over the line, whereas the rest of the document is on the line. That suggests the company name has been added after the rest of the document was created, I would suggest. Which again will be forgery, because this document has a signature. So of course, if they're not signing for the same company name and they're changing the company name, or there's no company name and then they add one, then that's fraudulent, isn't it? So on the right here, within King and Spalding, we have William Charnley, and he was appointed on the 6th of July 2012. That's 2 days after they supposedly created the Higgs boson particle, or the God particle, with the CERN Hadron Collider. And we're going to come to that a little bit later in another video. So you can see on the right, he is then linked to the Muscovy Company Limited, which ties in with Russia and what we were talking about coming in from the research of the Iranian leader. See how quickly that links from King Spalding. But let's go a little bit further. You can then see he's also linked to the company that features throughout the fraud, and I suspect linking to international child trafficking, the Invicta Film Partnership, one of those companies, and they're all dissolving as I'm exposing the fraud. He's also linked to another film company called Zeus Films LLP. Well, here's Zeus Films LLP, and you can see on the left there at the bottom, it was incorporated on the 3rd of April 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster. And just quickly switching to some screenshots that I've previously taken in relation to Jordan Maxwell. Some of you may know about him. He's a conspiracy theorist. I just want to show a quick bit of research that I'd already done on him. And he was born in 1940, and look when he passed away, according to this, March 23rd, 2022. As I'm making the inquiries within Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, Jordan Maxwell, possibly linked, to Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell. And he was an American writer, researcher concerned with theology, secret societies, etymology, and occultism. Maxwell is considered a big name with the world of conspiracy theorists and served as an example for several authors and researchers within the field, including Michael Sarian and David Icke. Well, I already know from the research that David Icke links very closely into the international government fraud and, in fact, into the Russia side of things via the Hakluyt company, which is now dissolved as a result of my exposure. That was created in 1995, and that links the fraud very importantly to the royal family. And the Hakluyt Advisory Company is on the Prince and Prince of Wales Foundation Company at the bottom when we were talking about it on page 40 of 40. Go and check it. Foundation of Prince and Princess of Wales. Go on to the incorporation document in the filing history, and you will see the Hakluyt Advisory Company at the bottom there. And a very important company called Ingenious Film Partners 2 LLP, which, funny enough, we're going to look at in a minute after we've had a quick look at this. So Maxwell was the editor at Truth Seeker magazine for 3 years, made documentaries for the CBS TV network, hosted his own radio show under the ABC. One of Maxwell's hobby horses, besides symbolism and word interpretation, is the so-called astrotheology, not invented by him, a theory that holds that religions are based on astronomical events. And when I researched on Companies House, Jordan Maxwell, remember there's no verification, it comes up with Zeus of Olympia Limited. And look when it dissolved on the 7th of March 2023, a year after his death, if he even died, because I do suspect they are making people appear dead and telling the public they're dead as part of the international deception. I suspect that Jeffrey Epstein and Max Clifford are probably not dead, and we're being led to believe they are, because they're very key to all of this. So that dissolved on the 7th of March 2023, as I was exposing the fraud. And it started on the 4th of May 2017, the same month, exactly the same month that Fleming Co-Limited was started, that we were looking at linking into all of this. So going back to the document and Zeus Films LLP. So just talking about Jordan Maxwell, it's clear that they've positioned all of these people to say most of the truth, but not the truth of the real issue, which is the Companies House fraud that links all of this together. And many, many people have been positioned. Russell Brand is linked to it. Most of the top people supposedly talking about truth, okay, and corruption within government have been positioned as part of this to stop the real truth, which is this Companies House fraud, which is the vessel for all of the world's problems this from coming out. This includes Tommy Robinson. And I've shown in my Satanic Temple document and evidential research that he's linked into all of this in a huge way. So Zeus Films LLP, incorporated in 2002, still active. And within the company, one Corbella, I think that's right. Links to, on the left, thought that was interesting, Medway Films. That's the area where I was born, Medway in Kent. And on the right, what we were just talking about, Ingenious Film Partners 2 LLP. That's the company that links every area that you come in, from the fraud, linking into the international child trafficking. It all links back to this company pretty much from every angle you come in. And it's very quick. There's over 5 million registered companies, remember, and that is one of the companies on the bottom of the document for the Prince and Princess of Wales Foundation. On the left, within Zeus Films, Henry Davis links to the closed film sale and leaseback. That features throughout the fraud as well. And also Zeus Films, David Jordan links to the Second Scots Atlantic Distributors LLP. Now, these were like within the first companies I looked at within King Spalding that the FBI previous leader, Chris Ray, was part of. Okay, so there'll be loads more, but of course I can't show everything. So this, of course, now makes a link to Scotland. Remember, it's where the oldest active Freemason lodge is, and the information is suggesting that it's the real Jerusalem, and that whatever's going on over in Israel is a massive part of the deception against humanity. And you can see it just recently dissolved, 11th of March 2025, and it's linked to FRP advisory in the address field. That features throughout the fraud. So 11th of March 2025, and it started in 2003, 2 years after the World Trade Center disaster, almost to the day, 3rd of September. On the incorporation document, it has Hammonds, care of Hammonds. Now that is important. I haven't looked into, that would be interesting to look into, but of course time is minimal here. Nazira Mula. Sounds interesting, bearing in mind you've got, is it Gazera and Nazera that Donald Trump's on about? If I had time, I'd research that, but I've got to focus on the stuff that I'm looking at. Now, that company, Suddards, was it? Hammonds, sorry. Suddards, Hammonds. Links to the previous research. Hammonds, Suddards, that's it. And you can see here, Office 2 Team, my previous document that I had, and we're going to look at that now, where I saved months and months ago. And on this document for this company, we have Sundar Mansukani. Now, I think we're going to look at this in a minute in a bit more detail. It links to the Satanic Temple research. And you've got OYES, Stephen Cox company on the document. I remember I'm speaking about this because it had Hammonds written, care of Hammonds. Well, that'll be that company, Hammonds Suddards. Suddard Hammonds. Someone had can't speak properly. And on the incorporation document further down, you can see all of these important companies, Waterloo's. Okay, now De La Rue, who was the main currency producer for most of the world, purchased Waterloo's in 1961, 5 years before the Church of Satan. It was also involved in the production of money for Iran, I believe. And this then links into a lot of the companies on the bottom, the stationery companies, on the bottoms of a lot of the forged documents are these companies, okay? Which makes it a forgery, because if any part of the document is forged, then the whole document becomes illegal and fraudulent, and therefore the company has never been legally registered. And they would know this, okay? The whole lot is criminal. And also on another part of the document, it mentions the Solicitors Law Stationery Society Limited. Well, on a lot of the documents, you will see right at the bottom in very small writing, when you look at incorporation documents, you'll see this company. Now, what I find important about this is further down on the document, you have this. And this is a letter, which is why I'm mentioning it, because it's by Hammond Suddards. Remember, it was care of Hammonds. So I suspect that's this company. And it's a letter from 1996, 5 years before the World Trade Center disaster. And it talks about the changing of the company name in relation to Office 2 Team Limited, which we'll look at in a bit. And it says here, Newco, which is its previous name, is being incorporated for acquisition purposes. Documentation to this end is currently being drafted, and completion of the acquisition is expected to take place in the next 2 weeks. Accordingly, we'd be grateful if Newco could be incorporated with a requested sensitive name. Requested sensitive name. Okay, so that refers to this company, which is now under the name of, or was under the name, we'll look at it in a minute, Office 2 Group Limited, okay, which then ties in to Sundar Mansukhani, okay, which is a name used right throughout the fraud. It links to the child trafficking, it links to Max Clifford, it links to the NHS very, very quickly, okay. It's the same name, everybody. We're talking about the same name, not just the same company, the same names they've used, okay. I suspect they're deceased people or made up names, like Barbara Kahan. They're using Mavis June Latter, several names, multiple different names that then have tens of thousands sometimes of companies linked to it. So let's move forward. So we were looking at Hammonds on that Scottish company name. Within the second Scots Atlantic Distributors LLP company, which obviously we came, remember, we're not far away from Chris Ray, from the links to Chris Ray. We have Christopher Avery on the left. Now, Christopher Avery links you can see because his name's at the top and you'll be able to check it. You can verify all of this, please. Don't just trust me. Don't take my word for it. Go and look at it. Owen Film Partnership, LLP. Now, those of you who've seen my evidence in relation to the Satanic Temple United Kingdom, you will see that that very same company is featured on that. Here we are, Owen Film Partnership. Now, Owen, I suspect, relates to the Owen family, who were the linked to the management company of Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. It was Stephen Owens, who was the manager that I approached after I became the acting chairman. He resigned, and it's also linked to a name Betts here. You can see very closely on the Satanic Temple document that you have a link via it's actually the Close Film Company that we looked at earlier, to Betts people. Okay, Betts surnames. Well, Diana Betts was a director in Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, okay, who was vehemently against what I was trying to uncover. They were all involving all of the other directors to try and collaboratively work against me, all right, but none of it's worked in the end, okay, which shows I've been positioned by our creator, because you had 20, I think there were 25 shareholders all collaboratively appearing to work against me as part of a deception, or most of them, that's for sure. And in the end, they removed me as a director. That was initiated by Deborah Fleming. Many of them forgot to, when I realised the Lloyds Bank connections, I sent an email out to all of the shareholders, okay, asking them to confirm if they did or didn't have any interest in any way, or not, did or didn't, with Lloyds Bank. And only one person replied, because they knew, oh dear, Gary's onto us, I suspect. Because I remember I'd acquired forged Lloyds Bank documents through the company, and they tie heavily into the finances of the royal family, or Prince Charles in particular, King Charles. And King Charles is linked very, very closely to Exbourne Manor with the association with the Flemings, and I suspect King Charles is an imposter in the royal family, and probably many of them are. So we've got this link to Owen Film Partnership from the previous research, and on the address there you had Turk and Connell, which then led into important evidence on the Satanic Temple document back into Scotland. Now we're going back into right back to David Jordan of Zeus Films, okay, that we were looking at. You can see his name at the top there. And he is connected to Dun and Bradstreet Properties Limited. Now, this is so important, because Dun and Bradstreet we'll look at now. First of all, on the left, here's all the previous names. They changed their names many, many times. And by changing the name, it removes that accountability and liability, okay? So I'm not saying they have, but it's possible they laundered some money through their company, changed the company name, and then it's very difficult to then hold anybody accountable, certainly the companies, if they've changed the company name, because they don't exist under that name anymore, although it's the same company. So Dun & Bradstreet, when you research that on Google, you'll see a couple of entries. We're going to look at them here. Dun & Bradstreet at the top there, and Data Universal Numbering System. So Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet Holdings, Inc. is an American company that provides commercial data analytics and insights for businesses. Remember, this is all about corporation fraud, Companies House, etc. Headquartered in Florida, which is where Donald Trump is, I believe, lives. Is that correct? The company offers a wide range of products and services for risk and financial analysis, operations and supply, and sales and marketing professionals, as well as research and insights on global business issues. It serves customers in government and industries such as communications, technology, strategic finance, services and retail, telecommunications and manufacturing markets, often referred to as D&B. The company's database contains over 500 million business records worldwide. So it's a system of holding company records, almost the equivalent of Companies House, but not in the United Kingdom. The key people for that company are Bill Foley. I haven't got time to look at all of them, so we're going to look at Bill Foley, but you've also got Anthony Jabor and Brian Hipsher. So Bill Foley, born in 1944, is an American businessman and former attorney specializing in the financial services. He is the chairman of Fidelity National Financial, Khamenei Holdings, and Black Knight Financial Services, and vice chairman of Fidelity National Information, Inc. Now, the Knight wording there is likely relevant because I've started to find lots of Knight companies. It's potentially a reference to the Knights Templar and the Freemasons. However, this is incredibly important. Foley is the leading investor, chairman and CEO of Black Knight Sports of Entertainment Consortium that owns the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, Knights. He's the owner of the team Vegas Knights Hawks. He is the managing general partner of Black Knight Football and Entertainment, which owns Premier League club AFC Bournemouth. Bournemouth in Dorset, where the acting chairman of Companies House, Anthony Roberts, worked for. All right, who we mentioned in the last part. And he was the one I approached to look at the bank documents and resigned a few days later after becoming angry. So let's look at the data universal numbering system. It was the second thing that came up when we searched for Dun & Bradstreet. The data universal numbering system, abbreviated for DUNS, is a proprietary system developed and managed by Dun & Bradstreet that assigns unique numeric identifier referred to as DUNS number to a single business entity. It was introduced in 1963. That's the year of the assassination of JFK, which I think is all tied into this international fraud. And there's more evidence I'm going to show in relation to that when I get a chance. But obviously things are escalating. We're talking about an inversion of the universe, so I need to focus on that first. But you can see underneath here links to Apple, Google, all right, all involved in this international government fraud. They've all got fraudulent companies. Okay, centralization, full satanic control of the world through crime. All crime, and to defraud and exploit and victimize billions of people and allow the abuse of children, international conflicts, and crimes against humanity. According to all of the research, it's overwhelming. DUNS numbers can be represented using ISO IEC 6523 using ICD. It's far too technical for me, that bit. Unlike national employee identification numbers, a DUNS number may be issued to any business worldwide. Prior to 2022, the year that I was making the inquiries, no coincidence, certain US government agencies required that a vendor have a DUNS number. Further on in the research, just to confirm here, from October 2003, 2 years after the World Trade Center disaster, until April 2022, the United States government required that all organizations doing business with the federal government use a DUNS number as an identifier. After April 4th, 2022, the federal government instead began using the unique entity ID. And there's a reason I'm doing this, and you'll see why. So the entity component system, so ECS, which is, so I think when I clicked on the unique entity ID, it took you to the entity component system. And that is a software architectural pattern mostly used in video game development for the representation of game world objects. An ECS comprises entities composed from components of data with systems which operate on the components. Now, the reason I'm showing this connection is because as part of the satanic agenda, I think we're going to be leading into transhumanism and mind control, okay, to eventually lead to, or this is what I believe they were working towards, was to remove or trap moral conscience within a body they can't control. Because in the revelations of Scripture, it states that people will want to seek death but not be able to find it. So the only way you can do that is you trap the conscience in a body they can't control, and you could do that through various means. But I suspect they were going to use the mind neurolink control as part of that. And here further down we can see research in relation to it and video games. Remember, notice how they applied the video games upon, and I was hugely into them when I was younger. Luckily I've come away from them now, but they're applying it on the children, aren't they? And they will be using subliminal messages through film, television in these games, okay? They won't even realize it, okay? But in 1998, 3 years before the World Trade Center disaster, Thief, the Dark Project, interesting name, pioneered an ECS, the unique numbers that we're talking about here in relation to video game worlds. The engine was later used for its sequel as well as System Shock 2. In 2002, the year after the World Trade Center disaster, Scott Biles of gas-powered engines Dungeon Siege gave a seminal talk on ECS. So we've got this link, what I'm trying to show you, coming from King Spalding now, from the FBI, from Donald Trump, from this satanic international government fraud and control over humanity to this now. And you can see it also links to Apple. So in 2015, Apple Inc. introduced gameplay kit, also relating to the potential mind or world control in games. Now, it's no coincidence, I believe, that a few days ago, possibly some of you saw it longer than that ago, but for me, this was popping up all over TikTok. The nubbin, okay, a little device that people put on their heads and their eyes turn grey and they enter a game world, okay, a virtual reality world. Now, everyone was seeing these thinking, my goodness me, what's going on here? This is just unreal. Now, I took the screenshot you can see on the 9th of April 2025 just to show that was around the time this was coming out. And then I heard that it was supposedly a gimmick leading up to the new series of Black Mirror. And if you haven't seen Black Mirror, then we're going to look at it now. And I appreciate we might be going off, but we're not. This is all tying into the satanic plan, satanic agenda, far away from our creator as possible, okay? And to falsify biblical prophecies and cause suffering to humanity, okay? It's all about suffering of humanity to these people, it appears now, because you've got the link to the satanic cult, all right? It's very important, when really it should be about moral conscience and truth, transparency, and trust, and the management of people through that transparency and incentivized choice, if necessary, to help manage people. Instead, we've got this criminal, fraudulent system exploiting, victimizing, causing suffering, and the removal of moral conscience through the removal of rationality. Black Mirror is a British anthology television series created by Charlie Brooker. And it's containing sci-fi technology, a type of speculative fiction. The series is inspired by the Twilight Zone and uses the themes of technology and media to comment on contemporary social issues. Most episodes are written by Brooker, with involvement by the executive producer Annabelle Jones. As Black Mirror is an anthology series, each episode is stand-alone and can be watched in any order. The program is an instance of speculative fiction within science fiction. The majority of episodes are set in dystopian near futures with novel technologies that exaggerate a trait from contemporary culture, often the internet. An example is Crocodile, where the recall device used to view a person's memories is the main difference from the modern world. Many such technologies involve altering the human body or consciousness with little in-universe concern for the morality of these actions, remember what I've just been saying, the removal of moral conscience and the control of the moral conscience and the removal of free will, if you like, and using moral conscience to implement actions in people's lives. This is what they're doing. It's satanic, everybody, and this must be stopped. So let's look at Charlie Brooker, born in 1971. All right? Key people throughout this have a date of birth of 1971 on the Wikipedia research. That's the year that the World Economic Forum was created. And remember, Klaus Schwab announced his resignation 3 days after I sent my evidence to the World Economic Forum in relation to this international government fraud in 2024. He'd been the chair since 1971. Okay, and remember, the letter was written by Albert Pike 100 years earlier, 1871, to Mazzini in relation to the three world wars. So here's Charlie Brooker. He started his career as a cartoonist. Okay, now Disney is massively important in relation to this. You'll see that on the Satanic Temple document, and tying in, I believe, with the murder of the real heirs to the throne in Blackpool in late 1950s, early 1960s. And Blackpool was the inspiration for Disneyland, by the way. Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Go and research that. So he produced adverts for the second-hand video game retailer. Okay, CEX. We're talking about video games again. Remember, coming in from that unique number reference that the government are now implementing, which links to the video games. Okay, before becoming a journalist. Now, all media is controlled by this international fraud, all of them. And he had involvement with The Guardian, you can see. And yes, they're part of the fraud. Further down, Charlie Brooker was born in 1971, as I've said. He grew up in a relaxed Quaker household in Oxfordshire. Oxford is very important. It's where Ghislaine and Robert Maxwell lived. And Ghislaine Maxwell was a director for Oxford Football Club. She was linking into Farrett and Co., which ties in with the international fraud as well. And they're hugely important in relation to this. I doubt Ghislaine Maxwell is even in prison and ever was. And I doubt Max Clifford or Jeffrey Epstein ever died. You can see here his parents were fans of the television sitcom Bewitched. Witchcraft, okay, ties in with the satanic cult. And there's other links to Bewitched as a mockery and pretty much telling us in our faces. We're talking about Charlie Brooker here. So they had two children, both sons. Rupert, the Member of Parliament for Ealing Central, and Acton is Brooker's sister-in-law. So there's a link there to politics. And every single politician I've looked at is linked to this system of crime and fraud in some way or another. Let's go down a bit more. So we're going right back. Remember the pizza company, just in case you didn't think that was relevant, coming in from the same surname as the Iranian leader. We're now going to go back into Ali Shah. Remember, Ali Shah led us to the Muscovy link to the evidence that we've just come from for the FBI leader. Well, he links to Rasasi Kitchen Limited. I don't think we've mentioned this. Forgive me if we already have earlier in the document. And they're also now starting to strike off the company. And they also have Rapido Logistics as its name. Got a feeling I've already done this evidence, but we'll do it anyway again. No, I haven't, because it's important. Yeah, because on their incorporation document, you have Jaffa Accountancy. Okay, so an accountancy firm. Remember, we're not far away at all from the link to the Fleming Co. Now, we're within one or two companies because it links via the companyformations.com, was it? Which was incredibly important, which links Fleming Co., the Netanyahu, Donald Trump, and the leader of Iran, all very quickly. And here we have Jaffa Accountancy Limited. And just to look, because a couple of the companies we were looking at around that link to the Iranian leader had previous company names of logistics. So just to confirm what logistics means, it's the overall process of managing how resources are acquired, stored, and transported to their final destination. Now, children will be transported, obviously, as part of this international child trafficking, likely through containers and then moved around the world. And here's Jaffa Accountancy on the top here. That's on the incorporation document. Started in 2014. And on the incorporation document, the same company, the formationscompany.com, the same one we were just talking about, the links, Fleming Co., etc. And here's some names within the company. And on the right, Shabat Jaffa. Remember, there's no verification of names. Links to Blockchain Accountants Limited that dissolved in 2023 as I'm exposing the fraud. And blockchain is incredibly important. BRICS uses blockchain. Does BRICS use blockchain? We're going to come to why this is important as we move through this. Yes, BRICS nations are exploring and implementing blockchain technology, particularly for payment systems. The BRICS groups, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is developing a new international payment system called BRICS Pay, which is based on blockchain technology and digital assets. This initiative aims to create a more independent and less resilience or reliance on the US dollar. This system will be based on digital assets and blockchain, potentially including central bank digital currency. Now, let it sink in how serious this now is. We have a group of criminals, part of a satanic cult, that are now trying to enslave everybody into digital currency, it appears, using this blockchain and BRICS. And the countries that already use it, according to this, Brazil, China, India, Russia, very important, we're researching Russia, Egypt, important, and Iran. They're all in on it, guys, okay? Because it's linked to the taxation system, they want to enslave you into it and remove cash, and then literally there's no way out of this. We are on a fast track to hell on earth, because then they have got full control. At the moment, you can all withhold your taxes and still have a secondary payment as using cash. If they remove cash, then they're going to steal your money from you potentially and implement any criminal government legislation or policies that they want. They're complete criminals, and they're going to lead to hell on earth. But it's all being, I hope, scuppered and changed, which now means we're going into a dangerous element of this, because of course they haven't got many options on how to deal with that. If the evidence gets out to enough people, they'll either enslave everybody to the point there's nothing they can do and carry on, or they remove billions of people that may prevent this, because most people are going to be innocent. We've got a small number of people in control of all of this. Okay, so we cannot let this happen, everyone. So there's several things they're going to do. I mean, the worst case scenario is and it does look like they're trying to invert the universe and destroy everything at one point, but that could have been planned for a little way off in the future. So they're now potentially they will be in a very difficult position, but we need to get this out to enough people, and I'm being suppressed. So just to confirm here, and I'm going to finish the document. I know we're 37 minutes in. So Putin invited Julian Assange's father to a BRICS meeting in 2024. This was after Julian Assange was being implicated in the fraud. Every bit of research surrounding Julian Assange links into the international government fraud and links into the satanic cult element and the child abuse and blood taken from children. And here we have Putin inviting Julian Assange's dad to a BRICS event. Now, this is important because on the Julian Assange document, okay, remember I've just said every element links to him. You can see every element of fraud surrounding Julian Assange links to him. I've searched his dad. Okay, John Shipton comes up. Remember, there's no verification of John Charles Shipton linked to Queen's Cops Management Limited, appointed February 2023 as I'm exposing the fraud. Here he is. Of course, no verification. Here's Queen's Cops Management Limited. It's got an address that links to Exball Manor Freehold Limited, okay? When Owens and Porter resigned, they were trying to get me to use another management company that are linked to the Association of Residential Management Agents, or ARMA. That company links very closely to the Association of Chief Constables, which are heavily implicated in this international government fraud. And that organisation was set up in 1948, the same year as the Israeli-Arab War. Okay, tying in with Israel again. So anyway, we have this link to Queen's Cops Management. Okay, we've come in, remember, from the name of Julian Assange's dad. Look how quick this is and how important this is. That then links into, we're just looking at the same company then. It links to the fraud immediately. But on the right, Napier Management, which was one of the companies that the other shareholders and directors were getting me to try and get brought in as a new management company for Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, okay, after Owens and Porter resigned. So they were trying to control all of the accounts and the information to ensure the truth didn't get out as to what they were doing. That's what it appears. And they were appointed in July 2024 to Napier Management Services. And you could just see Christopher Batten at the bottom there. And here's Christopher Batten. Christopher Batten is my wife's dad's friend, who I had many conversations with before I realised they were all implicated in this. And we got onto the subject of this. And Chris Batten was saying, Gary, well, there's not a lot we could do. We need a nuclear war or something. He was trying to convince me that we need a financial reset because inflation. It's a lie. You just need to make the system transparent. They are so heavily deep into this, and the satanic element of this that they're linked to, they cannot see a way out. And most of my wife's family are implicated in this, okay, which is, I mean, it's mind-boggling how I've ended up in this position. And they resigned from that company. So Christopher Batten resigned from Christopher C. Batten Limited, as I'm exposing the fraud. You can see June 2023. And here's Christopher C. Batten Limited. And the address here, Southbourne Grove, Bournemouth, Dorset, is linked throughout the fraud, specifically around Lisa's family, my wife's family, and Exbourne Manor. And I can't read that. It's Brighton company on the incorporation documents. Well, Brighton links to the research surrounding Connor Burns, who is the the Member of Parliament for Bournemouth, who has now stepped down since I've exposed this, everybody. In fact, two key members of Parliament, Connor Burns and Tobias Elwood, have now stepped down from their positions, along with the Chief Constable of Dorset Police, Scott Chilton, and he's now resigned on the very same day that I released my evidence of the Satanic Temple United Kingdom. He resigned. The same day, everybody. They also moved the Assistant Chief Constable, Sam Doraya, from Dorset Police to Hampshire. The the head of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council resigned. The head of the Independent Office of Police Conduct was moved. The head of the Serious Fraud Office, Lisa Osowski, was moved, all as I'm exposing this, everybody. However, let's see how important this is, because it then goes to Queen Elizabeth School, Wimborne, which is where the Flemings live. And Queen Elizabeth School, Wimborne, dissolved on the 30th of August 2022. As I'm exposing the fraud, just over a month after Anthony Roberts resigned. And on the left, Fiona Holmes connects to Initio Learning. Remember, there's over 5 million registered companies. And Deborah Fleming, the person that initiated my removal from Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, is a director of that company when this screenshot was taken. And she was appointed in November 2022. And just to confirm, on the right, there's her name. And there's Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And there's my name on Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited as well. We're talking about blockchain technology and the link via the research from the Iranian leader. Okay. And there's other companies as well that we'll come to if I have a chance, but I'll do that in a separate document. And this is the research, or a screenshot from the research in relation to the child protection side of things. And this was me coming in from the apparent mass murder of children. I think it was 65 different body parts were found in a child's care home on the Isle of Jersey in 2000. I think it was 2006 or 7, around that time. And the research was from the lead investigating police officers and the politicians, and it connects to Matilicus, Blockchain Technologies Limited. Okay, so another blockchain company, full digital currency control, tying into BRICS, which Russia uses, and Iran and Egypt, and that probably the United Kingdom was thinking of using as well, and they were going to try and probably integrate this right around the world as the one world order system of controlling finances, but I hope it's being scuppered. And on the left, you can see Blood Brother Limited. That had also featured in the Satanic Temple research, and also coming in from the research of the cell tower overlooking Fort William in Scotland, also came to that company very, very quickly. And of course, the police they say they have blue blood, don't they? And the thin blue line. And unfortunately, I was really hoping that not many police were going to be involved in this. But the information I've got is that very low-level Freemasons now know what they're getting into very early on. Not necessarily the child trafficking, but in relation to the money side of things and the corruption through the taxation system, which is very sad and unfortunately does explain why nobody's contacting me from the police, really. All of my friends, previous friends, are blocking me on groups. None of them are contacting me, even though they know that I'm having threats to my life and I suspect an attempt on my life. It's very sad that these people have really given up on moral integrity and conscience, particularly with the role that they've got. And I'm seeing very sad videos of police reacting satanically, in evil ways by shooting people very quickly in America. I saw a video of this poor dog, I think that was in America as well, where the dog was literally, it was a lovely collie, and it was just barking a little bit, came up to him, and he shot the dog dead. I mean, just killed the dog. It was just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And now it's all making sense with this satanic infiltration across humanity. So the point I'm trying to make here is they're going to try and enslave everybody into a system of crime, satanic crime, and therefore secure the child trafficking and the blood taken from children forever. And the evidence is overwhelming that is a huge part of this through all of the evidence. And just the last part of this document, because I'm going to do another document, because if you put too much information on, the whole document slows up when you're trying to work on it, and it just makes it really difficult. So I'm just going to finish this one now. And these were some screenshot sent by one of my contacts the other day. And obviously, I'm not going to disclose who they are, but it's talking about the Green Movement, okay? Well, or the evidence, shall we say, that I've acquired from this links to the Green Movement. And it's just talking about, you can see here, the Shias who will follow the Antichrist. It states that he will come from a city in Iran. Well, I didn't know that they are Shia. They will have green cloaks, Persian cloaks. That's their sign, and they will support the Antichrist. Well, that's interesting, as Russia controls Iran, and Russia and China are Gog and Magog. So I had this information. There was also a phone conversation, and I didn't really know much about it. And then I researched it, and I was gobsmacked. And we're going to start looking at a little bit of the research now in relation to it. So when I typed in on Google Green Cloaks of Iran, I spelt it wrong, but it still came up. You had the 2009 Green Movement. The 2009 Iranian Green Movement, a protest movement against the results of the presidential election, used green as a symbol of hope and change. Protesters wore green ribbons and turbans, and the colour became a rallying point for those seeking a more democratic Iran. Wikipedia says the Iranian Green Movement, Persian and another language, or Green Wave of Iran, also referred to as the Persian Awakening or Persian Spring by the Western media, refers to a political movement that arose after the 12th of June 2009 Iranian presidential election. 2009, a very important year. Why is that so important? Very likely because it was the incorporation of the Prince and Princess of Wales Foundation Company, which is key to all of this in a huge way due to the links on the document. And remember, it wasn't long before that I became a director of Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited by chance, which I think is divine intervention in relation to this. And you will see as we go forward in this evidence how this appears to link in rather significantly and overwhelmingly to climate change, which, remember, the green connection, Greenpeace, Green Party, climate change, it's appearing as though that was being used to hide the satanic infiltration of Iran under the green movement. And we're going to look at more evidence as we come into that later. But here, just further down, it says the green movement protests were a major event in Iran's modern political history, and observers claimed that these protests were the largest since the Iranian Revolution of 1978 and 79. And remember how important the football clubs are throughout the threads. Football clubs feature all the way through the research of the fraud. The perfect organisation to launder money through. And you have all of these international high-profile people involved in football clubs, okay? Because there's a lot of money, as we know, going through football clubs, and therefore the ability to launder tax contributions and defraud the public through those football clubs. And here we are in relation to the Iranian research. We have the football clubs, and that they are allegedly, in 2009, again, 7 members of the team wore green wristbands in support of the Iranian Green Movement during the 2009 Iranian election protests. So this is really important moving forward with the research. I'm going to have to show another time. And of course, I do believe that this is why information came out. Sorry, I can't speak. That Charles may have converted to Islam as part of a satanic deception, tying in with the immigration side of things to lead to a satanic infiltration and a risk of conflicts between faith groups, fitting the Albert Pike letter document and the satanic control over the world, leading to an escalation. See how this all ties in? And then more recently, Prince Charles, which we'll come to again, and you may have seen it, but you can research. Prince Charles allowed for the first time ever an Islam event to take place in Windsor Castle. Now remember, all faith groups have been infiltrated by the satanic cult. This is not about religions and faiths. It's about an infiltration of those faiths by an evil group of individuals to bring about something potentially catastrophic, potentially against humanity, potentially. That's what it appears to potentially be. And remember, I keep going back to, on the very foundation of this, on the basis of this, we have a criminal, exploitative and victimizing financial system that's been in place for a very long time that facilitates crimes against humanity. So it cannot continue. Even if everything else is a deception, you have a financial system that is corrupt, okay, that facilitates crimes against humanity. So we have to get, okay, to a system of truth, transparency and trust. And as I've said earlier, the technology is there to make that happen through a financial system that the masses have the ability to audit. So any leadership or guidance, whether local, national or international, knows the finances are being watched and therefore will not misappropriate or misuse that money for criminal motivated reasons. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Speak soon. Bye-bye.